Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Man leen nuyu bu baax a baax di leen gërëm di leen sant di leen wax ne welcome back to another episode of the Better Gambia series. Now, for some of you that are visiting this channel for the first time, please go ahead and hit the subscription button so that you can continue to see our videos and be able to send us your feedbacks. Waa tey nag maa dellu si waatoon pour continue discussion maanaam faral di def on some of the issues that we continue to face as a country. Soo ko xoolee Gambia ñun problèmes yu ñu am dafa bari. We have a lot of different issues that we are dealing with, but as always, our discussion shouldn't always be centered on the problems. We should instead be talking about solutions and how we can fix Gambia for generations to come. So because of all of that, I decided to start a new series where I'll be talking about the education system of the Gambia and how we can make things better. Like I'll be talking about the improvements nga xamne lolu len need pour yaka jangi rew mi. Because da nga gis ne in one of our previous episodes we yagu dara ma ngi won fini and we were talking about corruption and the impact it has on Gambians. So when I finished that episode, I'm on a lot of feedback from many Gambians. You very d'accord with me or you very agreeing with me that corruption is the main problem that we have, and fixing corruption is the gateway to making Gambia a better country. Why the problem is, or the thing is, do we really know what corruption entails? Do we even know what it means to live in a corruption-free society? So the truth is, there is nothing like corruption-free society. The them is dealing with either one form of corruption or the other. Why one thing that we shouldn't also ignore, or one fact that we shouldn't also ignore, more Gambia dika bu ndaw and it's made with gross corrupt activities. So dem na ba nga xamne right now the hardest job anybody can ever do more to try to convince Gambians, especially ñi nga xamne mo suñu tukki, that Gambia is a corrupt country and that Gambia can do better. Or Gambia can be a better country. Because most of us, all we've been seeing is just corruption. So amuñ any good baseline to compare Gambia with. More than you they'll be struggling to believe that Gambia can be a better country. Because Gambia, we are kind of unfortunate in the sense that we've always lived from one form of corruption to another. Now this started during the days of Jawara. Jawara bam fa nekkee woon, so gisee Jammeh coup d'état woon ko in 1994, dafa believe woon there were a lot of financial embezzlements yu nekkoon di happen si réewi Gambia bi. Mooy there were a lot of corrupt activities nga xamne mo nekkon di happen. Lolu mo taxone Jammeh stage under coup d'état pour guiné Jawara. So ba Jammeh guiné Jawara tam gis nañ in 2016 ba Adama Barrow tam guiné Jammeh lu doon halat ci corruption yi nekkon li ci dëkk bi yépp gaay confirm nañ ko because a lot of commissions were set up and all of these commissions confirm nañ there were a lot of like corruption activities or corrupt activities taking place in the country. So legi Jammeh guiné na fa bobu jeexna nguri Adama Barrow bi tam legi all we hear every single day is corruption scandals from one office to another. Corruptions every single day. Well, like I said, to fix all of this, for now we need to go back to the root cause, and the root cause is getting the education system right. We should be able to get the education system right. Pour ñu mëna fix corruption ak tam ñu mëna fix any other issues yi nga xamne yu la nekk di xam ci réewi Gambie. So like I said, loolu nag moo nekk one of the reasons lu tax ma jógoon tey ma jógoon bu wanna start this series where I'll be talking a lot about the education system. So lu ma intent nag mooy ma dooree ko from the elementary school, then I'll also talk about the junior and senior secondary school, then later I'll also be talking about the tertiary institution, and throughout all of this, inshallah, I'll try to get as many people as I can to join me in this discussion. So we all talk about a new brainstorm on what is needed to improve the education system of the Gambia. So when I found the only permanent solution to most of the problems that we face is education. And when I say education, I mean quality education. Because as a nation, as Gambia right now, we need to create a nation of thinkers. They're not going to be carried away so easily. Because right now, problems in the why so whole problems most of the time, you say, but do we even know what those problems are? So having that sense of awareness, knowing our rights as citizens, knowing when and when not to protest, and even knowing what just oppression looks like, lolu mo tax kuñ fal as a president so ñëwé di nga respect citizens, knowing that ne ñi suma fa defété li nga xamné nekkul nonu, they gonna fight and they gonna protest. Why so long as nguur yam fa xamné ne comme 99% or let's say 50% of Gambians seen janga sori wu, they don't even know what their rights are. These are the people ñu nga xamné so la tabaxalé pompe ñu nangu, so la joxé courant ñu fogg ne jox nga né aduna bi yépp. So then ñi ngi continue di am like 50% of Gambians in the same bucket, it's always going to be a problem for us. So that is the thing that we need to get ourselves out of. So whole Gambia before 1999 moy bala ñu am university versus Gambia after 1999 moy after bañ amé university nga xool number of Gambians yu daan am international appointments versus right now Gambia su nekk di am international appointments da nga xam ne education rek moo mun loolu because during those days when I remember in the 90s and even 2000s soo gisaan ni ku daan liggéey UN or some of these international bodies we talk about them like crazy because bari wutoon they were very very few while right now it's a lot of people working and in those bodies and the truth is the only reason they're able to get all of that is because of quality education mooy bi university now the quality of education at the University of Gambia is still debatable but alhamdulillah that's what we get and then you can see that it's already like being very very impactful mi ngay change lot of lives ak tam you see the same level of awareness lu mu nekk di cause mooy da ngaa gis like so compare UTG ñu fa nekk di dem right now students at the UTG ñi ngay protest every single time because the more they go to school the more they understand their rights more than they're afraid to speak up waaye da nga gis ne ñoom seen age mate ñi nga xam ne comme amuñ that same level of education ñi ngi seen kër yi ñi nga gis the same level of injustice meted out onto them waaye they're not complaining you know why because kii dafa xam right am as citizens ñii dañ xamul seen right as citizens so loolu nag moo tax dañ ko def all the time an educated nation is a fiat nation because nguur bi su ñu xamee ba nga xam ne ñun gaay nekk di govern ou ñu gaay nekk di rule xam neen seen rights and they won't be afraid to speak up each time ñu gis ne there's something failing in the system su la dee nguur bi dee gën a bàyyi xel compared to nguur bi nga xam ne xam nga ne 90% of the population don't even know what it means to be this or that so loolu nag moo tax education should be our number one priority su dee bëgg neen Gambia move si kanam so that is the level of awareness that we need to create in our country. So the human capital index of the Gambia is 0.42. Now what that means is Nitsujudo Gambia right now, based on our current education system or based on the quality of our current education system, combined with the healthcare system, that person can have a maximum productivity of 42%. Now what that means is no matter how hard you work, you're going to go past 42% productivity. Now compare that to Asia and other countries. Asians, they have like productivity of anything more than 80%. Why? Because they have a better education system. The same thing with other Western countries. Now, within Africa, I'm not going to say Gambia is the worst because definitely I think we are even better than other African countries. But there's no reason that we cannot increase this number. And to increase this, we need to work on our education system because the quality is now probably the quality of the education system of the Gambia is limiting us on how productive we can be with our lives. So that is something that we really need to work on. More than we need to work on the education system, especially jange xale. Now, so this is my focus on jange xale because the formative stage of the brain doomi aadama is very elastic, but more even elastic or more flexible during infancy. According to science, da nga gis ne when a child is born, during the first few years, or let's say the first 3 years, science is telling us that more than 1 million neural connections or neural synapses more they form every single second. So these synapses or these neural connections they help you a lot of different skills. Skills like what? Language, math, vision. All of these many skills is all built into these neural synapses. So that is fastest during the first few years, like let's say the first 3 years. Now, after the first 3 years, now the brain has already built a lot of these different connections, meaning that the child is now ready to face the world head on. He is very prepared to be anything. So after these 3 years, the brain will them through what is called synaptic pruning. Now this pruning, just like used in agriculture, then the brain starts to question itself. The one, okay, man, luma janga as a child, barina. Luma janga barina, but how useful is everything that I learned? So like I said, okay, you know what, janga na this no did, I eliminate those cells from the brain. So then I guess as a child, in the first few years, janga and almost all the skills that we're gonna need in our lives. Why? How much of those skills we maintain that would depend on the environment that we live in. Like today, environment they are very religious. Da gis ne like those connections they push religion dafa gëna strong. Why so da nga dikk ci environment bu nga xamne they are not, then probably dafa wax ne you know what, I have this neural connections or I have this signals nga xamne niduma ko, then let's eliminate those from the brain. So that is how the human brain works according to science, and I believe it. So xolé Gambia da nga gis time bo nonu suñ deman school do dan gis like maybe some of my friends, I don't know how if everybody believe this, why na wax ne comme xalé su ñëkke janga alquran typical de nekk ñu smart, right? Lu ko daan cause mooy because da nga gis ne when we start learning Quran at very early age, even before 3, da nga gis ne like that learning at that age mi ngi help like our brain to utilize the neural connection that we build very early in our development. Why su dee nekk amuñ anything li nga xam ne mu ñoo challenge to learn more like the Quran or others, da nga gis ne like the brain start to eliminate those skills that we've learned. So the synaptic pruning mooy stage bi nga xam ne suñ rombee like the first 3 years the brain start to question itself, you know what, jàng naa li, how useful is this, how useful is that. So loolu moo tax ma nekk di focus si jàngi ndaw yi. I think we need to put so much effort on this and know that ne comme xale o jànga is best to start at a very very young age. Moo tax in this discussion I'll be talking about the teachers that we have in our elementary school and how good our elementary schools are. Because suñu misee foofu noonu like dafa difficult to correct it. Dañ ko wax ne jàng du wees, people can learn while the foundation has to be right. So foundation be corrected, man believe na ne jàng dafa wees. So su ne jàng du wees moom mean so amee the right foundation you can delay the rest till later. But if the foundation is wrong from the very very beginning, then I doubt ndax kooku noonu da mën a resurrect academic career man loolu laa gëm. So waaye danga gis ne comme like I said the experience matters. So as a child we are growing all these neural connections. So lu ñëw mën a dimbale as a child we need to be in a positive environment. That is like we need to be in an environment that encourages us and that help us utilize the skills that we have or our inherent skills. Mooy skills yi nga xam ne yu leen juddu wale ak loolu leen jàngat during the first 3 years. Our teachers need to be really good. Our parents need to do so well for us. And then anybody that we interact with during that stage of our development should be somebody that inspires us to be somebody great. To be a great person. Waaw so comme li dee olof yi di wax rek banta bu tooy moo neex a jubal, right? Waaw banta su tooyee si nga ko dee mën a mold into how you want it to be. Te loolu yëpp ma la wax ne is happening in the first 5 years of a child's development. Su demee nag ba wow dat banta doo ko mën a jubal soo ko bëggee jubal dafa dama. So banta bu tooy moo neex a jubal, right? So loolu nag moo tax kenn warul laa jiitu si sa boppi doom bi as a parent. Because the first 5 years is the most critical aspect of their development. So time boobu nga dee mën a instill that sense of awareness in them. The time boobu nga dee mën a help guys to be able to take part in decisions that affect them later on in their lives. So xale bi nag demee ba romb that stage, then the next stage of their life si la des parents yi dee ñëw di la wax ne education is the key to success, right? yaa ngi nañu dégg baax a baax education is the key to success. But do we really know what education is? And in fact, do they even define success for us? Waaw suñu ne education nag Western education is just what form, waaye jàng dafa bari forms. Janga yu bari moo ñu war si janga. Western education is just one of the many things that we need to learn. And when it comes to success, ñu dañu define success bu bari moo tax comme xale soo ko define success at that age mu ngi mag yaa ngi naan ko education is the key to success, but to them li nga define success or according to the role models yu ngay nekk di gis yëpp mooy xaalis. So ñoom dañoo juddu thinking ne life is all about xaalis moo tax léegi soo ko xoolee right now in Gambia humanity is almost gone. Nit yi didn't even think about relationships. Xale faale tud yaay faale wut mag faale wut anybody, everything they think about mooy how much wealth they can amass during their lifetime. Waaw why? Because we're not talking enough. Suñ definition bi dafa des. Education is the key to success, but people can be successful even without being rich. That is something that we also need to be telling our kids. So now let's start with the education that happened in our homes. So lii mooy education bi nga xam ne mi ngi happen fekk dooraguñ sa primary one. Waaw so foofu noonu you as a parent si nga dee start di prepare sa brain doom bi pour mu mun a accept Western education but also try to learn how to make it purposeful. Because jànga nag nit ki lu mu sori si jànga su dee jàngam bi amul any purpose attached to it, we can always question how useful that education is. Loolu moo tax nga gis ñu bari ñi ngay jàng waaye ba tey ñi ngay def li nga xam ne people are always questioning them, right? So da ngay gis ne that is the place, or the home is the place where we add purpose to somebody's life. Si la ñuy jox gars yi, si la ñuy train gars on how to be respectful. We can also talk about hard working. You encourage them to work so hard, but that's where we also teach them about integrity. Wax leen ne okay, you know what, jikko bii laa bëgg nga am, and it doesn't matter who is looking and who is not looking. This is something that you must always do because it is the expectation of the family that you come from. So these are the things that we need to put in the brains of our children. Even balagay di start a Western education system. So ñun growing up in the Gambia, ñun suñ parents yi jànguñ toon, ñu bari si ñun suñ parents yi jànguñ toon, but they had their ways of doing things. One of them was telling us stories at night. Now to begin with, they were already our role models because even though amuñ toon that much Western education, while luñ gis mooy den juddu fekka them being kind, moo tax ñun amuñ benn option not to be kind. Den juddu fekka leen being respectful, moo tax amuñ benn option not to be respectful. Waaye ñoom their way of teaching us mooy time boobu maa ngi remember in Farafenni for instance, every night suñ toogee parents yi dañu dee like story time. Now in the Western cultures ñu léegi ñu bari day def mooy sa doom si tëdda nga readal leen books, right? During our time there was nothing like readal books. Maybe others might have had it, but at least man growing up from the village, or let's say growing up from town like Farafenni, amuñu lolu. What we had was we had our parents, ñi nga xamne they would spend the time every night. Then you call ñu ñep dajal because I grew up from a very very big family. Dañu dajal ñep tok ci état bi ni tok di waxtaan. Then dañu label lébi olof suma yaay sosé la lébi sosé all kind of label lañu label moy taling. Understand? Why in those stories da nga dig about empathy. They are like stories explaining the plight of women and children, the stories of like women and children living under hostile kings. All of these stories were like ways of trying to inculcate all these virtues in us. I remember a story. I remember well nan. Julol na tatalia from banning fala julol yendi ke men na julol saba mini yang ba julol. So this is one of the many stories that she will sing for us at night. Now this is a story of a very very young girl that wasn't very content. So much that even when it comes to choosing a husband, like husband with certain things they have almost like impossible. But in the end, she ended up regretting it. So through these stories, then she young and domi aramanga wara doylu. Understand? So these are all the things nga xamne parents suñu ko jangale ba nga xamne legi we are going to school now knowing what doylu is, knowing what empathy is, knowing what it means to have integrity. Da nga gisale su neme Western education, no matter what we learn there, duñu mëna sway out of our cultures. So ñun as parents, our responsibility more, even so the government bi sa utal ñu school bu baax, ñun we shouldn't fail in our responsibilities of raising good kids. Wow, they were raised kids they are so good ba nga xamne anytime opportunity comes their way, they will never underutilize it. So that should be the responsibility of a parent. So the goal shouldn't just be to create like ñi nga xamne dañoo mag pour am xaalis, but even if they are not rich, we want them to be good. Gambia loolu la ni right now. More than if we start getting everything wrong every single day, ñi nga am like disappointment with the government and others, we need to go back to the basis. Start to think about the way we raise our kids. So they risk halis or whatever it is in their minds. That is something that we need to clear. Then we need to set our priorities right. So I'll talk about those priorities and what I think are the things that we should start to focus on as a country. Like if our education is not guided by principles, then I don't see that education serving any purpose. So for Western education, education is a basic human rights, as already captured in a lot of international laws, but also in the Constitution of the Gambia, that education is a basic human rights. Now, what that means is any hale bu judo bir Gambia amna the right to have basic education. So neke parents don't be access to any school, then you have the right to go question the government. And this should be for free, basic education, right? So like I said, as of 2019, as far as I can remember, in 2019, the Gambia had a policy goal of 80% of the kids or 80% of the youthful population getting basic education. 80% like I'm on the goal. Now through this, they also got some grants from the World Bank in partnership with the Global Partnership for Education, more GPE. Now between the two bodies, between World Bank and the Global Partnership for Education, $35 million was given to the government of the Gambia, and the goal was to improve early childhood development, but also boost access to Western education and madrasas. So those were the two main goals. One was to promote like early childhood development, but also boost access right to basic education and madrasas. So since then the government is working so hard to build as many schools as possible. So at the elementary level you get a lot of schools. There is a goal of saying no students should travel more than a certain number of kilometers for school. So that is why they're trying to have schools close to the communities, which I think is very very commendable. But can we say the same about the quality? Come schools in your billion, have enough teachers? Are they having enough learning materials? Are the schools equipped? Correct? Those are the questions that we should be asking. Because according to the same report, only 11% of students, between age 7 and 14 can demonstrate sufficient reading skills. So you have a lot of different schools. You know, 35 million, yes. You have a lot of different schools using the money from the Gambia and also the 35 million support. A lot of different schools you can build. Why schools could be the result is still saying that only 11% of the students that go to those schools are able to demonstrate sufficient reading skills. And when it comes to numeracy, my math, only 9% of the students, out of every 100, only 9 students can demonstrate sufficient math skills. So the quality is still lacking. A very, very important question we should ask is, now government, like I said, they are building a lot of different schools. Why among all these many government workers, especially they're in these high positions, can len si gis domam di dem ci a public school. So public schools ñi ngi bari, but ban government officials nga gis mu nekk dem ci those public schools. So da nga gis ne those are only for the poor, ñi nga xamne mënuñ ta afford private schools ñoo fa dem. Right? So government ñi ngi build schools yi nga xamne sax ñom seen boppa óoluwuñ ko, or they don't trust those schools. So that is the question that we should be asking. So da nga gis ne for the education to be right, all these pieces need to come together. Mooy lan, the Western education, the home training, madrasas, Arabic schools, all of them need to be equally effective for this to be right. So the recording is getting a bit longer than I wanted it to be. So no matter what, I'm going to cut fini. Why those of you and you have interest in making the education system of the Gambia better, please remember to follow me on the next episode, which I should be dropping soon. So in there, we will dive deeper into the education system of the Gambia. There, I'll talk about the infrastructure, the challenges, and ways that we can even make it better and more inclusive for all Gambians. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon.